Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session where together with Professor Daniel Rukare, we are going to talk with you about business agility and anti-fragility that drives future growth in the current business environment. I'm Liliana Caimacan, business transformation strategist, marketing leader, and an expert, and also professor of marketing and innovations at HALT International Business School with a wide experience within the business environment and companies like Unilever and Tata Consumer Products. I would like to invite Daniel to introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Liliana. As Liliana said, my name is Daniel Rukare. I'm a professor of practice at HALT International Business School. I've got both commercial and academic experience. Today's topic is one that is going to allow us to be able to integrate not only theoretical concepts, but practice, and allow business leaders to be able to see and develop strategies that would allow them to build what we refer to as anti-fragility through future-proofing. Businesses and how they build businesses grapple with how they deal with agility. And some of these are affected by different trends. These trends allow businesses to be able to deal with what we refer to as the uncertainty within business strategy. Some of these particular trends include data and digital. For me, I think that data and digital are not only here for us to be able to grapple with, but to be able to ask from the senior level, how we're going to use data and digital to drive not only operational efficiency, but future growth in business. Now, the ability for businesses to be able to understand how to deal with what we refer to as high business agility is fundamental for businesses to be able to transition from what we refer to as operational efficiencies to future growth, or what we refer to as future-proofing of their businesses in areas of uncertainty. Now, hypersegmentation is another area that is of concern. It is a trend that allows customers and businesses to interact. The jargon these days is most businesses talk about having what we call a consumer-centric approach to business. And that consumer-centric approach varies from business to business. Now, we've got to be able to understand how those manifest into what we refer to as ecosystems and partnerships. Those partnerships could be through partnerships within your supply chains, within your agencies, but also with other stakeholders that include the consumer. We've got specific areas that are of interest within our research and practice that include aspects around crowd innovation and how that feeds into business agility and how that business agility drives what we refer to as anti-fragility. Now, inequality and social pressures are aspects that continue to inform our business trends. Those inequalities and social pressures have never been more relevant today, especially as we go through the COVID-19 pandemic. These inequalities are not just about inequalities of purchasing power, but they're also inequalities of processes within businesses to be able to respond to the different uncertain characteristics that have emerged within the business markets. Now, we obviously know that ensuring that your business models accept and develop what we refer to as environmental and sustainable, or what we call ecosystems that drive environmental impact, is fundamental. Now, these are just some of the trends that we're going to look at. We have recognized that several businesses have faced several challenges, and we have picked a few. We do not want to say these are exhaustive challenges that businesses face. However, the ability for businesses to drive what we refer to as sustainable growth is fundamental. The foundation upon which businesses are able to create a step upon which they can then grow in what we refer to as adjacent markets, or in the future, which is post 3 to 5 years, is fundamental. Managing those transitions is where the biggest challenge is. It speaks to the challenge of commitment from leaders. It speaks to the challenges around short-termism versus long-termism in terms of strategy. It speaks to the culture within the organization and how the organization deals with things like innovation. It speaks to the ability or the competence of team members within different organizations, how they manage those pivots and transitions within their different firms. Obviously, the question now is going to be, how do you determine which areas to create breakthroughs of innovation? And this identification is one of the biggest challenges that businesses face. I know that some businesses prefer to do what we refer to as incremental innovation, whereby they are minimizing and mitigating associated risks. However, that in itself remains, as we shall show you in the next few slides, that remains very, very, very minimal. Now, we always try and bring in quotes because it allows us to be able to have context. Now, Alan Kay put it really well when he said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Now, if we can spend just a few more seconds on that particular quote from Alan Kay, the best way to predict the future is to create it. That means that there have to be active, proactive strategies, scenarios that you build within your business model that allow you to create the path towards your future. The ability for businesses to remain stagnant and wait to respond or to exploit opportunities in the market is a far gone scenario. Businesses have got to actively drive and predict what the future is, and in some cases to create that. I have seen some emerging trends. For example, the GIG economy was created. I've now seen the B economy being created. The data economy has its own innovation that speaks to such specific businesses. So we've got to be able to manifest and allow us to be able to understand what these particular opportunities lie, as Alan Kay put it really well. Now, we'd like to share one or two aspects that businesses can take, tangible steps that businesses can take. The ability for businesses to have what we refer to as ambidextrous structures. Those ambidextrous structures manage what I previously said, the operational efficiency of today, while they're moving towards the growth in the future. It is easier said than done. Most businesses find it extremely complex to adapt and build what we refer to as ambidextrous business models. Now, that means that you've got to keep your core business. That means obviously identifying what your core business is and understanding where your core revenues are, but also other aspects around purpose, brand equity, customer engagement, offering, and configuration within your businesses. That is the fundamental pillar that allows you to build what we refer to as a healthy core. That gives you the foundation to move into adjacent markets. Now, most of you must be sitting there saying, how can business leaders implement some of the things that we're talking about? Now, we have conducted a lot of research. We have looked at businesses that have started since 1610, the Japanese business that has continued to transition through it. I'll ask for the next slide so that I'm able to demonstrate some of the aspects. Now, we have developed something called the three-step value model for future-proofing. The purpose of this particular model is to allow businesses to respond and proactively deliver business transformation. And we believe that that is the fundamental aspect that you would be, as leaders, as business leaders, would want to take from this particular talk. Next, we're going to show what the objective is: to transform businesses and attain sustainable growth through future-proofing. And obviously, to manage what we refer to as the ability or the ability in terms of the growth path and developing viable and reliable, what I refer to as OKRs, objectives and key results. Now, our model is a very simple model. It is simple and yet complex in terms of delivery. So it looks at value and how value can be exploited within your business models or your businesses. You deliver what we refer to as an optimized core, where you build efficiencies and optimize that core portfolio. Now that means most executives will look at revenue performance. We look at a multitude of variables that optimize that core value, because we've got to be able to understand what is that value that you are delivering to your consumers that will eventually or is currently delivering on the overall ultimate goal of increased or better performance. Now, that transition, the move from step 1 to step 2, which is where you create incremental value, is that you've got to be able to ask yourself, how can I create incremental value? And this is a meaningful move. We're not talking about brand extension, product portfolios, extension of revenue streams. We're talking about moving into transitional spaces, what we refer to as adjacent markets. Now, that allows for businesses to build some form of resilience and transitional strategies to understand how they can exploit those particular strategies. Now, again, we now say that at a later stage, you need to be able to move from what we call the incremental aspect, and the move from point 1 to point 2 in an incremental manner is to manage associated risks with business, with trends, exploiting innovation gaps, like you'll see in the next few slides. And number 3 is where you actually try and capitalize and exploit what we refer to as radical value. That radical value is anchored in what we refer to as antifragility. Antifragility, by definition, is where your business model is taking advantage of negative forces or uncertainty in markets. And for your business model to be able to do that, you have got to be able to drive disruptive innovations that allow for you to make that transition. Now, we have slightly more take on this. This means that you'll have to be able to manage competitive pressures. You'll have to deal with uncertainty in order to build that resilience. I talk about that resilience, that it exceeds resilience in your profit, or what we refer to as your revenue models. You've got to be able to utilize your resources in a frugal manner, but also exploit and extract value. You've got to be able to drive that transformation and manage it. And sometimes I talk to businesses when we're doing consulting, and they talk about how to manage the difference between silos within innovation. Now, as we move from optimizing this core value, we will get to what we refer to as incremental value. Now, that incremental value is, and I said, is the adjacent markets. It's fundamental for businesses to recognize that. It is not optimizing or creating efficiencies in your core business. It is moving to these adjacent markets that offer growth opportunities and drive future core development. So you're thinking about your business and beyond what it is that you're currently doing. At this point, just before I bring in Liliana, I would want to pause. I know that she does this on a day-to-day basis at Tata. I would want to bring her in and ask her to explain how her company, for example, recently launched a brand during the COVID-19 pandemic. Liliana, could you kindly just share as we transition to your examples and theory?
Absolutely, Daniel. I think that's a good moment to look to an example, a concrete example on how a company can manage this part of core and what means the future core or incremental value part of the business. And that's the example we have at Tata. I think it's very relevant. So we in UK specific, Tatlit is a big brand existing in the market for more than 180 years. Very strong brand, a mainstream one, addressing the needs of consumers, British consumers, delivering them a great tasty tea. But definitely we had only one brand in the UK portfolio. So that's quite difficult, especially when you want to grow portfolio. So definitely you need to look into what are other opportunities and where can I extend my business? What else can be done? Especially when you have a pressure from the marketplace with us and play in a segment which is declining. It is the black tea declining, and that's a reality. That's a fact. So definitely we're looking to how else can we extend our portfolio within the hot beverages and look into other brands existing within the Tata consumer products portfolio and identify Good Earth brand, which is it's an amazing brand existing in US for almost 50 years, which had been acquired there. So what we've done is we review and sort of launching that Good Earth brand in UK and really redesigning it in such a way to be relevant for the British consumers, to bring that excitement and novelty, that interesting approach when we talk about a tea and how you can enjoy a tea, especially addressing consumers who left this category itself. Of course, it was not very easy to go and extend and bring this incremental value within the portfolio in a time when everyone was focusing on driving core at any cost, because that was important in a year with a lot of pressures from outside. But it was a great launch, which allowed us to really tackle and reach out new consumers and extend our presence within the marketplace and start building what we call a portfolio of brands rather than one single brand. And definitely will not stop here, because continuing the conversation and the model you just described, Daniel, I would like to spend a little bit of time looking into radical value. That part which in most of the companies either do not exist or it's very small, but which I think is fundamental and is very, very important looking to the future. And only companies putting a high emphasis on this part of their portfolio are the ones which I think will thrive in the future, because this capitalizing the radical value will allow them to establish this anti-fragility business proposition, will allow them to really capitalize value where it is and disrupt the market through innovation. And I think that's very important, because we see a very fast transition from various categories growth. We see changes in consumer behavior, as you rightly said at the beginning. So it's really important for a company to understand how can really drive this value. But indeed, the question is how you can identify these opportunities for growth, how you can identify the opportunity gaps where you can develop relevant innovations. In our view, and that's another a model we define together based on some research and looking what's going on in the market, we see that innovation gaps are sitting at the intersection between four big important areas. One, it is consumer needs. A company do need to understand the consumer needs, what consumers do expect and how best satisfy that needs. It is about technological possibilities. What technology can bring us together, how we can embed and bring that technology as part of our business. It is about business feasibility, how business can extend, what exactly can bring additional to the portfolio, how can go beyond something which is the core, what would be the adjacent categories, but also the others which will be allowed to go. And last but not least, it is about social responsibility. A business today needs to be social responsible. I think, and really do that kind of things which will drive profit in a sociable, responsible way. And that's the future in my view. So innovation gaps really can be at the intersection of these four big areas. And I would say consumers are fundamental in understanding, having them at the heart of everything we do, and be consumer-centric. And to do this, using design thinking framework, I think it's a very interesting but also very relevant way in transforming these innovation gaps into disruptive ideas, into disruptive solutions, able to satisfy, first of all, in the best way the consumer needs, and to really solve their pain points, to bring into the conversation the market condition and behavior trends. And we know these behaviors, again, are changing quite a lot. So it's important to keep up to date with what's going on. But look into your category and your environment and see what are the demand spaces and that segment which are not covered yet, and how can be this, reflected into your business portfolio. Having this consumer understanding, done very thoroughly will allow to move to really creating innovative and interesting ideas, answering in the best way possible to that specific needs, and tapping into that market segment, which can become a great opportunity for the future. But I will continue my series as examples and go beyond the theory, which is good, and show you how these elements just shared can apply into some interesting examples. We know that there are two big trends which exist in the market, and one it is engagement and digitalization, and the other is sustainability. And Daniel touched upon a little bit about this one and how important it is, how they impact the businesses. I think that's why it's quite important then for the business to identify what kind of products can we bring to the market to tap into and explore these trends, and deliver to the consumers what exactly they're looking for. When we talk about engagement and digitalization, definitely probably the best example in terms of how this has been embedded into a lot of businesses lately, it is the adoption of e-commerce, which is a game changer. It is now something which allowed us as consumers or as companies to interact with each other, allowed companies to deliver the products to the consumers, allowed companies to exist, moving quickly from the real store environment to the online environment. And definitely this really revolutionized the way we are shopping, as consumers going in on the other side, but also bringing different experiences, some getting the product we want, when we want, how do you want it, and also putting a pressure on the companies to make sure they're really redefining their business models and bringing new and creative ideas and products to the consumers, allow them to experiment and engage in a different way with the products. Another example, which I think is very relevant, is touching this engagement and sustainability. And it is an opportunity for companies to start moving from recyclability to this idea of reusability of the packaging. What is the role of the packaging? It used to be to protect the product, but I think it can become like an important messenger to the brand. It can become a brand asset into the future, as long as this is done more thoroughly, has embedded some key characteristics of the brand itself, but also delivered towards a very important consumer need. Is that why to reduce the plastic pollution and get something which is much nicer, impactful, and attractive. And here the example I would like to share with you, and I encourage you to look for more details. It is Loop. It is an organization which basically supports the reusability of the packaging for 100 times. Why this is so revolutionary? Simply because on one hand, reduce the pollution, so it's really driving the sustainability in a very strong way. Second, also bring assets to the brand through packaging. And third, basically bring some economy of scale and bring an improved profitability of the brand. Just simply, thinking that you don't need to use 100 packs, or packaging material 100 times. You have something done which resists for longer. So definitely a way to engage and drive sustainability in a very relevant and interesting way. Another another example would be around sustainability and packaging. We know packaging, it is driving a lot of pollution. So thinking plastic and even some other materials. So definitely we see a big trend of various companies shifting to the use of various alternative solutions when we talk about packaging materials. And really here, the green fiber paper bottle, which I know it's in the testing phase, it's in an early stage, I think can be something interesting for companies within the beverage industry, for example, to consider for the future. Another interesting example into the space of sustainability is developing products which are vegan and cruelty-free. And I think that's something which consumers do expect from companies to deliver. Products to come and really deliver against various consumer needs, but making sure that they are sustainable sourced, they are natural, they are using recyclable packaging or reusable, as we've seen before. And also another important area, they are animal cruelty free. So we may need to make sure that we really pay attention to the nature. We take care to our environment when create the products, and our impact is very limited. An example here would be the Paula Choice brand, a great brand within the personal care environment, which deliver brilliant products, taking all these requirements coming mostly from the consumers. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for listening to our session, and maybe invite Daniel if he has anything to add.
I just want to say thank you very much